In the uneasy aftermath of the War of the Dead Gods, Alepion finds itself beset once more. From the north comes an invasion of startling suddenness and formidable strength, and there, in those dense and contested reaches, the Gatheian Invasion ignites. It comprised a series of large-scale engagements between the Gatheians of Gath and the Moon Elves of Alepion, who were still bleeding from not just the War of the Dead Gods, but by the Wingflow invasion some few years prior. This new enemy had come to descend from the north, and with terrifying speed, and to find its prey already wounded and limping. Glades and forests were burnt, armies shattered, heroes fell. Before the invasion was over, more than 50,000 lives were lost beneath the shadow of the Gatheian banners. This is the story of the war that nearly broke the Moon Elves of Alepion. Amid the many challenges, 3 in particular brought them to the brink of defeat and subjugation. Hey guys, I am giving away the first 5 books of my short story fantasy series, The Sun, Moon, Sand, and Star. To get your 5 free books today, head to the description, click the link, get my novel, Upon the Sands, and in the comments of this video, demand your 5 free books, and I will send them to you as soon as possible. Your support helps this channel and lets me know you're interested in knowing more about Alepion history. Now let's get back to the lore. In the year 3997 AL, a calm settles over the Alepion Realm. The War of the Dead Gods is nearly over, and for a moment, the Moon Elves believe they're on the verge of peace, when suddenly, terrible news begins fluttering in from the north. Gatheian Elves have landed on Alepion's northern shores, thousands of them, armed and armored. They have come to conquer a weakened foe. Though the campaign initially appeared successful for the invaders, most historians now agree that these early victories owed less to Gatheian supremacy and more to the precise timing of their assault. Indeed, it is widely argued that the very successes the Gatheians achieved would ultimately contribute to their eventual subjugation beneath the Alepion throne years after their audacious campaign began. In light of this, some scholars have gone so far as to question whether the invasion can be deemed a success at all, for the timing of the invasion remains central to its interpretation, unfolding in the shadow of the Wars of the Unworthy and overlapped with the War of the Dead Gods, conflicts that had already strained Alepion to its limits. Compounding this, the Moon Elves of the Old Way, who had instigated the latter war, continued their harassment throughout the Gatheian Invasion, adding further strain on Alepion's ability to defend itself. As a result, Gatheian victories have often been dismissed as lacking true glory. Yet others challenge this view, arguing that such dismissal reflects Moon Elf bias, an unwillingness to acknowledge the strategic brilliance of the Gatheian leader, Edas Thasastar. Because of him, records show that more than 30,000 crescents perished during the invasion, alongside over 20,000 small folk. Led by Edas, the conflict spread across much of Alepion. The northern regions of the Noons and the Trails bore the brunt of the assault, while Asher Rise saw only minor destruction, though it faced heavy clashes along its borders. Among the most notable engagements of the entire invasion were the battles of Hammer Hill, Stormfield, and Horrow Down. But then there was also the duel of Ashton Grove between Adras Thasastar, brother to Edas, and the Crescent hero, Anison Die Hard, a contest that ended with Anison's death. It was said that many a Moon Elf had wept at the news of one of their heroes falling. That, at Ashton Grove, a few miles east of the Neverhad Glades, Anison Die Hard met his end in a fierce duel. Though the conflict itself involved thousands of warriors, the duel between these two figures is remembered as the very moment when the country's prospects were thrown into serious doubt. Contemporary accounts place the encounter within the Ashton Grove, a sacred woodland situated close to the Asher Rise borders. Adras had established his command within the forest after a series of victories that had driven the Asherai's defenses into retreat. Following the defeat at Greenwater Ford, Anison Die Hard was entrusted by the Elder of Alepion with ending the threat. Both had agreed to settle the matter in single combat rather than subject their armies to further bloodshed. They agreed that the duel should begin shortly after sunrise. Witnesses report that neither warrior arrived at the duel with an escort. The high records speak of blades moving swiftly, and that the confrontation was not drawn out, was concluded quickly. Meanwhile, later poems would embellish the encounter with storms, spirits, and manifestations of ancient magic. Although many such claims are difficult to verify, there is broad agreement that both combatants wielded powerful martial skills and that Anison initially held the advantage. But before the morning came to an end, the duel was over. Anison's body would be mutilated and raised as a battle standard among Adras's forces, a calculated act of brutality believed to have been designed to provoke Alepion's leader, Elder Dayain, into a direct confrontation. But of the three main losses Alepion suffered, the duel of Ashton Grove became overshadowed by what came next. Known initially as the Battle of Rare Shade Bridge, it would pass into history as Darkpine's defeat. Following the Moon Elf victory at the defense of Lovilla, the Elder of Alepion, Elder Dayan Lovilla Lightmarsh, advanced along the Blessed Road through the northern reaches of Gladen Forest. He wished to assault his enemy's headquarters. Blademaster Karsten Darkpine was ordered eastward with the Lumendir forces and was tasked with advancing toward Dark Lake and circling Golden Pines, where the Gatheians had established another stronghold. The Moon Elves wished to attack the invaders on two fronts, yet through what many chroniclers refer to as Gatheian devices, their enigmatic sorcery, the invaders became aware of Karstan's movements and prepared an ambush. As Darkpine's forces crossed the Rare Shade Bridge, disaster struck. The Gatheians waited until nearly half the Moon Elf host had passed before launching their assault. They fell upon the rear, severing any retreat, while their main force crashed into the Moon Elf center. Amid the chaos, the bridge was destroyed with many still on it, casting Crescent warriors into the river below, where they drowned, dragged down by the weight of their armor. Blademaster Karstan himself had crossed before the collapse, but he soon found himself surrounded. According to accounts gathered by the mind-finders of the time, the Blademaster fought with relentless fury until the end, before enemy archers feathered him with their arrows. Meanwhile, Elder Dayain confronts the forces of Commander Adas Thassarstar at what would become known as the Battle of Nesvalor River. Dayain wore faded golden armor over white mail, his roundel shaped like intricate golden leaves. His grey cloak, said to have been left tattered and torn by battle's end, would become an enduring symbol in both written histories and small folk lore. His army is estimated to have numbered around 7,000 crescents, while Edas commanded roughly 4,000 troops, many mounted upon what has been described as Gatheian beasts of horn and fur and strange origin. After routing a Gatheian camp near the northern coast of the Noons, Elder Dayain swung back around and advanced south to trap Edas between his forces and the raging Nesvalor River. Yet news of Darkpine's defeat had already spread, sapping the morale of his army. At the moment of advance, more than half his forces deserted. Led by the High Crescent Fenorian Bloodsun, the deserters claimed that, with Darkpine's death, Adonai, the Whispering God, would abandon them, and had already turned his gaze from them. Despite their numerical advantage, they believed victory impossible. Fenorian led the retreat to Lovilla, leaving Dayain in anguish, leaving him to cry out, "Brothers, brothers," as recorded in Jalen Frosteye's A Glorious Ruin. With only a fraction of his army remaining, Daein nevertheless ordered the charge. While many attribute his defeat to Fëanorian's betrayal, others argue it was Daein's own stubborn resolve that sealed his fate. Still, loyalists maintain that his unwavering dedication to Alepion compelled him forward. With his main strength gone, Daein's strategy was forced to change. Looking on at his enemy, his choice was simple: break through the Gatheian center and reach Edas himself. Should he succeed in cutting down the invader, he'd be able to end the war in a single stroke. Accounts agree that Daein fought with extraordinary ferocity, though some suggest later retellings exaggerated his prowess to elevate his legend. What is known is how his Crescent Guard bore the brunt of the assault, falling in great numbers in order to shield him. Yet there are feats attributed to Daein that endure. The slaying of Edas's champion, Gana Athafar, the Moon's Bane, and also the killing of Jingan Stardar, who had risen to prominence after felling High Crescent Elias Irontree at the tragic Battle of Bitterfield 2 years prior. From this point, however, the records diverge. When Daein and Edas met, some accounts claim Edas himself loosed the arrow that pierced Daein's shoulder, suggesting the elder had come dangerously close to his target. Others insist it was Adrasthesa Star who struck the fatal blow, and that he'd come to assist his brother after fearing that Daein would emerge the victor. This latter version inspired the celebrated depiction in A Glorious Ruin, where Daein, riddled with arrows, falls prey to Adrasa's sudden arrival and in single combat defeats him. Either way, all accounts agree that, in the aftermath, Daein's body was left among the fallen, disregarded, dismissed, and collected days later by small folk. Fëanorian Bloodsun, upon his return to the capital, would learn a terrible truth. Adonai had not abandoned the Moon Elves with the death of Blademaster Carstan Darkpine. A new Blademaster had already been called. In that revelation, Fëanorian's error stood exposed before all of Alepion. From that day onward, he was held in contempt, condemned as a coward and oathbreaker. But history would remember him by a darker name still, the Betrayer. For his desertion at Nesvalor, he was publicly branded and cast into exile, a sentence the disgraced Crescent is said to have accepted without protest. He was never seen again. As for the succession, Elder Daein and Lady of the Moon Belandra had 2 children, Diana and Daein. Their eldest, the crowned daughter of Alepion, Diana Lovilla Lightmarsh, renounced her claim to the Golden Throne upon hearing of her father's defeat, choosing instead to follow her united one, Blydren Whitewind, the elf who would later become known as the Ensnarer. Because her united one did not wish to become elder, Diana did not wish to become Lady of the Moon, and so the line of Tree Lightmarsh continued through the younger child. At only 9 years of age, Daein Lovilla Lightmarsh ascended the throne as Elder Daein II. At his side stood Alepion's newly chosen Blademaster, Senistar Underhill, who would later earn the title, the Destroyer. Together, the young ruler and his fierce champion continued the war against the Gatheians. For the next 5 years, and under Senistar's command, the invaders would be driven from the heart of Alepion and forced northward to the very shores from which they had come. But vengeance did not end there. In retribution for the death of his father, Elder Daein II pursued the Gatheians across the sea itself, carrying war to the island of Gath. Gath would pay in full for all its sins. If you have made it this far, hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to jump on my giveaway. I am giving away the first 5 books of my short story fantasy series, The Sun, Moon, Sand, and Star. To get your 5 free books today, head to the description, click the link, get my novel, Upon the Sands, and in the comments of this video, demand your 5 free books, and I will send them to you as soon as possible. See you in the next one.